Hello, everybody. Today's subject would be quite light. It could be heavy. It depends what you think about it. That I want to title it on respecting our mistakes. And at the beginning, I will read you something. So just bear with me. I put my glasses and I'll read you a nice little piece of Indian wisdom. If the mind is happy, not only the body, but the whole world will be happy. So you must find out how to become happy yourself. Wanting to reform the world without discovering your true self is like trying to cover the whole world with leather to avoid the pain of walking on stones and thorns. It is much simpler to wear shoes. Isn't that great fun? And that is what I believe not respecting our mistakes means. We cannot actually achieve the peace and wisdom and happiness. And very often when I work, when I listen to people would look at me, or especially with couples, and at the beginning of their communication process is all about, usually the gentleman would say, listen, darling, please don't remind me of what I've done. I don't want to look at it. I just don't want to think about it. You constantly reminding me and nagging me. And the wife might just sort of whisper that it would be useful to look at what's going on. I don't want it. There are perks in this saying, I don't want to look at it. But as Goethe put it, unreflected living is not worth living. And many other very clever people were also suggesting that possibly the kind of freedom we can gain, or indeed wisdom, is through reflection. So why do we not respect our mistakes? One of the reasons why we don't respect our mistakes might be the shame. That if we are afraid that we are, imperfect, we might not look at it. Another is to gain peace of mind. But is it peace of mind? Is it really good not to respect? Because I'm not even talking about reflecting before, I'm talking about respecting. Because if you respect, and if you think about it, that psychologically, in order to learn anything about how we function, and since we function through our unconsciousness, we need to repeat our patterns at least 20 times. So if you think about it, that we already curse for repetition. If we don't reflect it, we can create a fine mess for ourselves. We can go through life like a Groundhog Day. Remember the film, anyone who watched that film. We can repeat ourselves, and very often we think, well, we have a bad luck, or we just don't do well with relationship, or I don't know why I'm doing this. And this famous saying, I don't know, or I don't understand, or let's not look at it, it's a curse. Because if we don't, who else will? It is impossible to believe that we can move forward or grieve our losses. And grief is also important, if we don't look at it, if we don't respect it. One of the ladies I work with had a terrific dream. And in this dream, she was very tormented by various things. Her habits, we'll talk about habits in a minute. And the voice was saying, we are your devils, we are your enemies. But if you don't name us, we're not going to leave you. So naming something means that we have to kind of stop and look at ourselves. I always say to people who pay me, I am a mistake on two legs, and you're paying me to hear that. Because if I tell you that I'm perfect, you should get up, go away, and never come back. In other words, it's human, as Chinese put it. A successful person is a person who gets up once more that it falls down. It's a human nature to fall down. So it would be wise to look at our mistakes. It would be wise to reflect it. Reflection, it's a female-based capacity of the psyche. It means that we learn what's going on. It also may involve a bit of grief, a sorrow. Why? Nowadays, you see, what we observe, a perpetual repetition or remarrying or relationship addiction, because before we even reflect for a second, before we even look at ourselves, we are already in another relationship. We are fixing ourselves. We don't bother to rest. The same with finances, maybe investments, or house buying, or car buying. We have to look at ourselves. Why is it that I'm always dating the same kind of crazy woman? Or why is it for a woman that I'm dating this gaslighter narcissist, and no amount of my promise to myself that I won't do it doesn't seem to work? Well, if you don't have a moment of reflection, you might gather a few husbands like that, a few wives like that. As one gentleman puts it, I think, Madam Parker, I'm going to live in Mexico because I had 5 wives and 7 children, and I have no idea what's going on. I don't understand women. And when I asked him, would you ever consider, he was in his 60s, Mr. So-and-so, that it might be useful if you look at yourself and see whether you can understand yourself a bit? He thought I was mad and declared that he is buying a house in Mexico and he's going to move. Well, I said to him that probably that's not going to work. So you see, our willingness not to look at ourselves is by far much bigger than our willingness to respectfully see what's going on. I remember one of a kind of new age priest, vegetarian cranial osteopath, who was talking to me about it, how he cannot possibly understand why he is perpetually making mistakes. He felt so bad about himself. He thought he was pure and clean. And we're talking about eating. And I was telling him that, eating habits are dodgy for me. And he was terribly pleased with himself until I pinned him down and he said, I don't know, Maya, why is it that I cannot accept the failure of my ego? I said, well, you just said it. You cannot accept the failure of your ego. And I always say that making mistakes is like reciting the same lines in a many different way. And it's probably nice to look at it. What are the way? What are we reciting again? What does that mean that we are going in the maze, on and on and on? Sometimes people say, and rightly so, that is connected to having bad habits. Then of course it is connected to having bad habits. But if you look at what is this persistence of bad habits, what is that thing which we cannot help? Maybe that is an outcome of our own inner laziness, because as creatures we are not all that heroic. We are innately lazy. That might be due to our own subjective emotional traumas, or our own compulsivity, or our own addiction, or our own immaturity. And we can only say, oh, well, I cannot help myself. We can if we have a chance to admit our failures. If we are based on shame, we will not be able to admit that we can be failures. And therefore, we will be sentenced to repeat more than it's necessary. So you can see how this defeat, so to speak, especially for men, much more difficult to admit defeat. Women are slightly easier on it. It's necessary. Defeat is a base of wisdom. Defeat is a base of success. Defeat is a part of our journey. And if we just stay with the ego, we will not be able to do it. And then, of course, we not only have unreflected living, but also ungrieved life. And with ungrieved life, something else happens. We can then become very angry with ourselves or raging. Rage is accumulation, you see, of ungrieved life, of unrespected anger on not reflected disappointments. It's an accumulation. So you see, we will be hugely in trouble if we don't respect our mistake. And if you go back to habit, what habit means? Habit, if you look at it from the Latin point of view, in Latin it means habere. Habere means to occupy, or to possess, or to control. In other words, our habits occupy us. It comes in that dream as that lady. It could come in our various figures in our dream. We are occupied, we're not free. So it is worth looking at that from that angle. We are not, if we are possessed, we're not free. And it's no point to say, I don't know Maya, I know something else, I don't understand, that's not me. I don't recognize this part of me. Well, I say, you're paying me to start recognizing, because it is you. It's just unowned to you, by you, so it owns you. And it is, if you are not in control of your reflection, if you're not in control of comprehending what's going on, then it will control you. And that's not a good thing. So we have to work with habits. And we need to find afterwards in which archetypes we are working in and what's happening actually to us. So I think that it's important that we are gently going towards some kind of wisdom. And somebody once said about the wisdom a very nice thought. Even the most enlightened beings, even the holiest saints, make mistakes. But whereas foolish people cover up their mistakes and keep on making the same ones, the wise correct their mistakes and never make the same ones twice. The ability to correct our mistakes and to change ourselves is called wisdom. And I feel that that is exactly what it is. That we have ways to wisdom, and this is one of them, is to go to wisdom through our mistakes, not through our doing well, but through our failures. And that is an incredibly important concept. One of the poems of Rumi, he finished with lines which I will read it to you. There is a dying that's necessary. Then there is Jesus' breath again. Very little grows on jagged rock. Be grand. Be crumbled so that wild flowers will come up where you are. You've been stony for too many years. Try something different. Surrender. So let's say a serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Bye for now.